Welcome to the Messy Middle podcast and radio show presented by Mother and Founder Co. Each month, guests are invited to share their version of the messy middle and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're in the messiness of growing a business, healing from trauma, or navigating the wild world of parenting, this show is a must. We are excited to celebrate the messiness of life and business with you. And now, let's settle in as host Jen Burwell connects us with today's guests.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. We were all just kind of jamming out to the intro music, so hopefully you were as well. I have two amazing guests today. I am so excited for this conversation. Since you guys agreed to be on, I've just been over the moon. So I want to introduce you to these mystery guests. Our first guest is Mindy Jones, the owner of the Amy Jones Group and founder of Community on Purpose. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And Kim Bryant, physical therapist and owner of Thrive Pelvic Health and Wellness. Hello.
Hi.
We've been talking about having you on for a long, long time. So I am so excited that today it's here. And I think this is going to be such a great conversation with the both of you. So I always like to start every show with just introducing yourself to the audience, starting with where'd you come from, kind of how you grew up, where you came from, to how'd you get here in 30 seconds or less.
30 seconds or less. We'll
No
see.
pressure. Yeah, maybe a little bit longer than that, but just give us a sense of your background. Kim, do you want to go?
Yeah. So grew up in Tempe, Arizona. I have three brothers, so very active. I got my degree in kinesiology, realized I couldn't really do a heck of a lot with that, so went on to get my doctorate in physical therapy. Started out in an outpatient clinic, then transitioned into geriatrics and started realizing that a lot of my patients were having bladder issues. So that started my journey into pelvic health. And then after my two births, realized that the support for women prenatally, postpartum is just lacking. So that, in addition to a poor work-life balance, kind of landed me in my own business.
That's awesome. And I want to dive deep into that. But did you go to school here? And so you've lived here, an Arizona native?
I would say practically. I've been here since 8, moved here from Austin, Texas, but graduated from ASU, played some soccer in college, a few different places, and then went to graduate school out in Mesa at AT Still.
Very cool. That's awesome. Mindy, how about you?
I am an Arizona native, born and raised in Phoenix, and then moved my family to the East Valley about 6 years ago. So I'm a Rose Lane kid, if you're from Arizona. Went to Central High School and graduated with an undergrad in psychology and a master's in public administration. And now I have a PhD in, I would say, the messy of life.
Yes.
I have owned my own business for 10 years and started a nonprofit earlier this year. And the true definition of messy is having a 3.5-year-old toddler son named Nico, who I love and I learn from every day, but it certainly is messy.
Literally and figuratively.
All those things, yes.
Wow. So I'm also an Arizona native. I say that I'm a third generation, but my grandmother moved here when she was like 2. So technically it's second generation, but I grew up in North Phoenix and then went to ASU. And I love the Valley. And then I moved to the East Valley about 11 years ago. And it's just so interesting to me. I always how there's like the West Valley and the East Valley and like the two sides. My dad lives in the West Valley and he's always like, oh, why do you live so far away? And I'm like, why do you live in California?
That is such an Arizona thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Growing up in Central Phoenix, the West Side started at 3rd Avenue, which obviously now, as my world has grown, we know that that's not really how it works.
Right.
But Arizona is like your own little box, and it's been really fun to explore out from there.
Yes, there's so many cool places. So I want to dive into the messiness. You both kind of referenced it, and Kim, when you were talking about with your check-in, and the work-life balance kind of got you into owning your own business. What you wrote on your form was just so interesting to me, and I want to hear you tell the audience a little bit more about desired chaos and how you came across that topic or that concept for you, and how that shows up in your life, and how you became a business owner.
Yeah. So when I was filling out the form, I was doing a lot of reflecting on how I got to where I was. And it wasn't ever necessarily a goal of mine to start my own practice and do my own thing. I thought there's no way I ever want to manage people. There's no way I want to run my own business. I just want to show up, go home, and be done. And in summer of 2018, my youngest was almost 2, and then my oldest was 4. And we had lived in our house for a while. I was close to the daycare, close to work, but I was starting to just get on this hamster wheel. And I would show up I'd get the boys ready, drop them off, go to work all day, pick them up, have work to do, but then still cook dinner, put them to bed when it's like the bewitching hour, they're tired, I'm tired, put them to bed, exhausted, didn't really feel like I could spend time with my husband. My husband would get home a little bit later in the evenings after we had dinner and, around bath time. And then I would repeat that. And then I would repeat that again and again. And I felt like I wasn't being fulfilled myself. I didn't feel like I was giving my children, my spouse, my patients, the quality of me that they deserved. And so I realized something needed to change. I couldn't change. I loved my career. I couldn't step away from my career.
Yeah.
I love my kids. I can't give them back.
Noted.
And I was depleting my energy and myself faster than anything I could attempt to try and fill it back up. And I finally hit a point when I realized that I needed to do something different. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do my own thing. And so I started originally, it was Kim Bryant Physical Therapy. And I remember that summer we were in Wyoming. We go to Wyoming every year to visit my in-laws. And coming back from that, I was done with my previous job. I was in an outpatient clinic, and I had started their pelvic floor program. And I knew when I came back here, that was done. And I remember feeling all the feelings. I was scared. I was happy. I was nervous. I didn't know if I was making the right decision. But I thought, you know what? If worst comes to worst, if things don't work out, I can always go back and find another job. So I felt like I had something to fall back on. But I started my practice actually out of my house, and it just started building from there. And a couple years later, I rebranded and changed the name to Thrive Pelvic Health and Wellness. And currently now we have 5 different locations within the Phoenix area. I have total of 4 practitioners working for me and a couple of support staff.
That's
and
awesome.
It's been really amazing. I feel extremely blessed. And I say it's the desired chaos because things are still chaotic.
Yeah.
I'm still balancing my career, and my kids are now doing like the sports, and I'm making time for my friends and working out. So it's still a little chaotic, but now it's it's on my time. I get to choose or have a better say in what I'm doing with my time and when.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been very fulfilling, but it's busy.
Yeah.
It's busy.
Life is busy. I have yet to meet someone who's like, oh, I don't have a lot going on. You brought up an excellent point, though, and I want to get your perspective, Mindy. You talked about, that you reached a point where there was no amount of like pouring into yourself that was going to keep you sustainable, right? Because we always think about like, oh, we got to do more self-care. We got to do more self-care. And sometimes, I mean, self-care is definitely important, but that's not always the solution. You realized that you had to make a big change. So for either of you, but Mindy first, how do you know? Have you experienced that? And then also, how do you know when it's like, okay, I've actually got to make a change? It's not rearranging and shuffling the same things in a different order.
So it's a really good question. I relate to so much of what you shared, and I'm sure many women do, whether you're self-employed, entrepreneurial, working for somebody, just the idea of all the things on your plate that you have to juggle and the feeling of not being good enough in any of those areas, despite waking up tired and going to sleep tired. So clearly giving of everything that you have, right? I think the idea of having to make choices and changes in your life comes from a place in honoring your seasons. So I've always lived and enjoyed living a very full life, busy, if you use that term, full, fulfilling, whatever it is, right? And as a mom of a young toddler who I feel like is changing seasons, I don't know, every 36 hours or so, I have become acutely aware of the fact that when I say yes to some things, I am in some way saying no to others. And I don't push that as a scarcity mindset. It's not that there's, a 1-for-1 trade-off for things. It's that there are not only so many hours in a day, but I only have so much energy to expend. And in order to prioritize the things that are most important to me or most fulfilling to me or most necessary from me from an energy management perspective, I have to be acutely aware of what I am filling my days with. And it is very hard. I think when you start to feel like you're on a repeating wheel, that's a good indicator. When you just feel like you don't have a pause moment, and it could be that you're not busy at all and still feel that way, right? The idea of like filling in routine, and routine is great and structure is great, but if you become aware of it and it starts to just feel like this never ending cycle, I think that is a good indicator. I think that if you can't recognize in your day or week the moments that you push on the pedal and the moments you take your foot off the pedal, like if you can't very clearly identify any change in pace, there probably is a need for a shift, because I think a healthier, balanced, or again, back to the energy management, I think in order to do that, you have to have both. And so if you feel like you're always on or always off, or you just can't identify the cycles, you're probably at a place of needing a change. So those, I think, are the big ones for me. And I think maybe the last one would be not feeling fulfilled in spite of choosing things that are fulfilling. That I think is a really big one for me. Community work is a big part of what I do. Giving back is a big part of what I do. Inspiring others to give is a big part of what I do. And when I feel like I'm just going from thing to thing to thing, and I almost don't even have the space to feel the joy from the work that we're doing, that's an indicator to me that something is not by design at that point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How did you know I needed to hear all of those reminders? I was literally having this conversation with my husband yesterday. I have so many questions for both of you. But first, you both have talked about it a little bit of knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no, and not coming from a scarcity mindset, as you said, Mindy, but really coming from like a prioritization or a clarity on what's important and what's not important. For those of us that may or may not struggle with boundaries as business owners, how do you get clear on what's important? And then how do you decide what's a yes and what's a no? So Kim.
Yeah, it's a great question. I struggle with the boundaries on a regular basis. It kind of, sometimes I'm like really spot on. I'm like, yeah, I feel good. And then there's other times when I know that I'm not holding on or valuing some of those boundaries. And then that's when I start to just don't find, like you said, that difference between my I'm on and my off. It's just I'm going. So I would say one thing that's really helped me is I have this whiteboard in my office, and it literally says my why. And it has changed somewhat, like my why is still my family, my kids are a huge part of that. But then there's other aspects of that have some changes and develop as my business, as I grow, as my kids maybe don't need as much from me. But I try and keep that at my forefront of when I say yes to something, I go back to my why. Does this maintain or does this support my why?
Yeah.
And there are times when I've had to give a little bit and I'm like, I know that if I commit to this, then I'm not able to maybe attend my kids', baseball game, but I'm choosing to do that. And I make that conscious choice. And I know that I'm doing that for this purpose because it's fulfilling something else within me.
Yeah.
But I really try and keep that at the foundation of all of my choices. And then that helps to keep me in line and keep some of those boundaries if I use that as a tool. So that's something that has been really helpful. I don't stick to it all the time.
Life is messy, right?
Yes. But yeah, that's something that's been really helpful for me.
I love that visual representation of your why, like clearly, so you can see it, because our mind thinks in pictures. So I love that piece. Mindy, what about you?
I think my greatest asset in maintaining boundaries is having accountability partners in life, because I think when you can't remember things, if you have the right people around you, they remind you of those things. And my journey as a leader has been to develop this real estate team of all women and all moms. And so by design, I've curated the people that I spend my time with. And being around them truly is my greatest accountability partner in life. I am constantly encouraging them to hold boundaries and hold space for themselves. And it's very hard, if you believe in being an authentic person, to speak these things and not feel like there's a mirror being held up to your face while you're talking. I mean, it's like a constant reminder to yourself. And it has really been one of the greatest tools that I have. Now, it's very difficult as a leader, especially a female leader, to not be challenged by the idea that you can be a work in progress and still help others. It's very easy as you're coaching people or talking to people to feel the mirror right up against your face and feel like, who am I to be encouraging this when I know inside I don't have this all figured out? So that's definitely something that I try to constantly be aware of and give myself grace for. And that's very hard. But definitely choosing the people in your life and ensuring that they echo the things that you think are important from the perspective of, helping you achieve them and encouraging you. And when you speak about them, if they don't tell you that you're being inauthentic or out of alignment, that you naturally start to feel that, and it helps you pay attention to those things.
Yeah, I think who you surround yourself with is so, so important. And I do wonder if you encourage your team to give you feedback and to kind of call you out when, like, hey, you're not being authentic or you're not living by what you said you wanted to do or whatever. How do you create that culture where your team members feel comfortable enough to be like, Kim, Mindy, I think we're kind of off course? Because I know you both do it. So, Kim, how do you do this?
I try and check in with my team and always leave the door open for feedback. Sometimes I don't get it as much as I want to, because I want that to be part of my growth, part of our growth, and we don't know. And I make mistakes, and I will say, oops, yep, I'm human yet again, but I always am asking for feedback from my team, and how could we have done this differently? It's not just Thrive isn't just me, it's us.
Yeah.
So I really try and create that culture of, this isn't us. Like, let's take some of your experiences and your ideas. How can we make this better? So I try and have that open door, that communication that goes both ways. And that's been something that's been really helpful. And just asking my team, well, what do you think worked with this? And what do you think maybe we could do better next time?
Yeah, it's great.
I have learned a gajillion leadership lessons along the way, and most of them are reflections of my own journey in life, and learning things about myself and the way I was raised and how I learned to communicate, and the protections that I put up around myself. And I mean, leadership for me is such a personal journey if you really allow it to be, and it impacts way more than just the people you're leading. But one of the things that I have really paid attention to is how to be transparent with people while still encouraging them and coming from a place of positivity. And I don't mean forced positivity. I just mean the idea that I believe as a leader, our job is to think several steps ahead and to help guide the people that we're working with into their best possible outcome, and knowing how to balance that messaging with, it's not always easy for me. And I think a lot of times what I've experienced is my team will say things like, we just assume it's so easy or so natural for you in certain circumstances. And so then I don't get the support either as a person, as a woman, as a friend, as a partner, because if I don't talk about those things, like before I go on stage to speak or before I do something in public, I may represent myself well, and I've done it for many years, so I have the practice. That doesn't mean I don't get just as nervous every time before I do it. So getting better about talking about that so that they can relate to it, and through that shared relationship, they get more comfortable providing feedback. Because I think sometimes we try to force the feedback just by asking for it. And even if you don't run a hierarchical business, which I don't think that I do, there's just a natural thing that humans do to look at you either as their boss or their leader or whatever it is. And so I don't think it's possible to like go direct and just say, give me the feedback. It's fine. I want it. Give it to me. I just don't think that works for everybody. So you have to create like shared experiences that then create some level of trust that then allow them to be open in that space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of the messages that I've gotten throughout my life for a variety of experiences, from difficult childhood things to adulthood to recent things, the feedback that I get is, well, you're so strong. Like, you are functioning, you're doing all the things. So I didn't think or know that you needed help. And that's been really hard for me, because it feels like on the inside, I've been like screaming like, hey, I could use some support too here, right? I'm holding everybody and everything together. but everybody's like, well, you're doing it so well, so you're good, keep going. And it really resonated with me, Kim, something that you wrote on the guest form about knowing not only when to say no, but when to say yes to help. So for each of you in your journeys as leaders, it is a little bit vulnerable to be like, hey, yes, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to do and do the best that I can and be great. But before I do that, I'm going to go throw up in the bathroom and try not to pass out. And letting people in on that journey. How have you guys let people in and accepted the yes and the help and talked about it? You answered it a little bit, but Kim, from your perspective, how have you done that?
It's been a lifelong struggle. Growing up and even now, sometimes I feel like I would see how my mom would grow up and she would not ask for help, and so I felt that if I asked for help or accepted help, I wasn't enough. I was doing something wrong. And I wasn't strong. And so it has taken me a very, very long time to say, because people will ask, oh, hey, do you need help with anything? And all the time it's just rolling off. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. Excuse me. And so it took that one time to say, well, yeah, I do need some help. And then how that made me feel, how that made that person helping me, like it lifted this huge burden off my shoulders. And I thought, that's all I had to do. I just had to say yes. And so it's been this positive feedback of, oh my gosh, it's okay for me to, one, ask for help, but then two, accept it. And so that has been something that has helped to take some of these burdens that I feel off my shoulders and allow me to have that better balance. And I'm still learning some too, like when to delegate here and when to, take things on. But it's definitely been really great to accept assistance and say yes.
You didn't die.
And I didn't die. No.
Okay. It's good. It gives me encouragement. Because I tell myself the same story. It's like, I should be able to, or if I really was this, then I would be able to do a million things and cram, all the things in one day. And that's just not possible. And I think somebody told me while we were navigating my husband's crisis this summer that people want to help, and it feels better for them if you say, yes, here's something you can do, or help figure that out, versus like, no, I don't want anything, because we all want to help each other. And that's actually one of the reasons why I thought you guys would be great guests together, is talking about the helping in the community, because I know community is such a big part for both of you, and I know it's how you've built both of your businesses, and it's just so passionate a topic for both of you. So if we shift to community and help, Mindy, why don't you talk about your new nonprofit that you started this year, which for some reason I thought it was a couple years old, but wow.
I know.
Oh my gosh, here we are. So tell us all about your nonprofit.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been a crazy year. I do the same thing. I think COVID sort of messed up our time, like sense of time.
Yes.
Many things this year I've done kind of in December, you do like a wrap up of things. And I'm like, we've been doing this for 2 years, whatever it is. And I look and I'm like, 6 years. Like, it's just so bizarre how time goes. But so Community on Purpose, we officially launched this year. My team at the Amy Jones Group has been doing a ton of community work. And like you said, it is exactly how we've built our business. I believe very strongly in the power of building community. And back to the help conversation, that's been my tool for trying to remember to ask for help and to be grateful for it, because I truly believe we were not meant to do this life alone. And I have seen the power of community firsthand many times over. I believe every connection is the chance to change the world, and you just never know why you met someone or where that relationship is going to go. And that has shown up for me in life a million different ways. And so I try to remember that when people ask me for help, and try to find some way that we can partner on things, because you don't know what you can do for somebody else by allowing them to be engaged and to give them a means for engagement. So the whole idea behind Community on Purpose was that we were doing a ton of community work. I have a background in nonprofit work. It's just always been a part of who I am and how I operate. And I really just had this feeling in my belly that I was supposed to be doing something with it. I come from a background in the nonprofit sector, and so I'm very cognizant of duplication of services. And I think there's a lot of really great organizations out there. And so hadn't really ever thought I'd be down the path of creating my own. I've always just helped other ones. There was just something that made me feel that this was particular to the concept of community. And it was really born out of the areas of service that have become very clear as being very important to myself and to my team. And that was really around women in leadership and organizations supporting youth and families. And so it felt like it needed its own home. But our goal is to raise money and volunteers for organizations who are already doing really great work. So this year, I think we've supported 15 organizations between ICANN and Chandler and House of Refuge and Mesa and Jacob's Mission and Mesa and Closed Cabin and Gilbert. And I mean, Shannon's Giving, we just donated meals for Thanksgiving in partnership with Amanda Hope Rainbow Angels at Phoenix Children's Hospital. We did 16 families for the Chandler Unified School District in partnership with Ocotillo Friends that we wrapped this morning. I mean, it's hard not to want to give and do and inspire others to see how accessible giving can be. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can be treasures. It can just be awareness. You know, as women, I think we put a lot of weight on our shoulders when we do volunteer, we do engage. Are we doing it good enough? Are we a good enough volunteer? Are we helping enough? You know, and it's like just providing awareness to the organization, or talking about it, or posting something about it. Like, it takes all of us and all parts of us. So that was really the idea behind Community on Purpose, was really that a lot of times you hear community talked about as being something that happens organically. And I call BS on most things that people think happen organically, because I just think it can feel organic, and it's great because that means you're in alignment. But it usually takes intention, and Community on Purpose is exactly that, creating community with intention.
I love that so much. That is a lot that you guys have done in 1 year. You named some of my most favorite nonprofits in that. And I think I shared when I was on your podcast that I come from a nonprofit background as well. And so I love that. And I love the really thinking about, like, let's not recreate the wheel. If the wheel already exists, how can we just make it spin faster? That's really awesome. So Kim, tell us how community shows up in your business, because literally everyone I talk to knows who you are. So
well, we try and be present in a lot of different spaces and communities. We give postpartum talks, pregnancy talks, what to expect, to different communities at different centers around the valley. We also try and do some community drives for a couple different places. So we just finished a canned food drive for St. Vincent de Paul in November. And we also give back to, we do menstrual product drive for Go With The Flow AZ, which is a nonprofit that provides menstrual products for those that might not have access to or can't afford. So we do that a couple times a year. So I try and find local nonprofits that we can support. So usually when we have those community outreach opportunities, then I like to give back to the people coming in and supporting my small business. So there is typically a discount also provided for them, because if, you know, we can give a little, you can get a little, and it makes everyone feel good when we can give back to people in our own community.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love about you, Kim, we're a part of a collective of women business owners in Mesa. And when they send out like a group message or a text or something, or they're doing an event, you're one of the first people always to be like, here, I'm going to help, or do you need this, or can I do that? And you're supporting with education around all these different businesses. So there's a midwifery practice, there's doula service, and like what you checked in earlier when in the very, very beginning, we were talking about pelvic health isn't necessarily something that there's a lot of awareness around in the pregnancy domain, and the amount of education that you do to help women, because it was never talked about when I was pregnant with any of my 3 kids. Like I never even crossed my mind. Well, I shouldn't probably admit this on air, but I've already told you once, is that like I go work out every day and I pee my pants, and I just thought that's how it has to be. And this is reminding me I really do need to make that appointment. But just the amount of advocacy and education and thoughtfulness, and the way that you so carefully connect with people and provide so much education. I've always admired that about you.
Oh, thank you. Very thoughtful.
We always joke, my best friend and I have the same problem, which now she's going to be mad at me for saying that. But we said, if we can hold hands together and see you, then we'll do it. So just quickly, since I brought up the topic and I am very curious for myself, why do you know the answer to this? Why is it not more talked about in the pregnancy space? And I know you just launched a course about my issue. So what are some things to be looking out, and what is normal and what's not normal?
So not normal is anytime you leak when you don't want to.
Like when you're doing jumping jacks,
coughing, yelling at your kids, whether, I mean, it might be a bad thing, it might be a good thing.
Sneezing.
walking.
Yep, I call that peasing.
Okay.
So I think that we have normalized leaks and urinary incontinence, especially after having kids. It's very common. 1 in 3 women have that diagnosis, but we don't talk about it. One of my big missions is to take that stigma, take that shame out of all things pelvic health. We don't talk about, leaks. We don't talk about pain with intercourse, because it takes you have to be a little bit vulnerable with yourself and with potentially your providers. And I would absolutely love it if we got to the point where I could say, I leak a little bit when I sneeze, just as easily as we say, I slept kind of funny and my neck hurts. Those are muscles. Those are both functional things, right? If I was driving and I'm like, oh man, I hurt my neck because I slept funny, and I turn funny, it's okay to talk about it. Why is it not okay? Everybody has a pelvic floor. So why is it not okay? So that's just that we're talking about it. I'm so excited. So in the urinary incontinence masterclass, I talk a little bit about some of the kind of anatomy that's involved. I think that our sex education program for our youth is lacking tremendously. So every single time, anytime someone's coming into the clinic, I'm doing a virtual appointment or any sort of educational course that I have, I always start with the anatomy. I think it is so important for us to have a very basic understanding of what things should feel like and look like in our bodies, so that we can start to tap into that space and start making positive changes. So in that course, we talk about some of the anatomy of pelvic floor, bladder, posture, and then I provide you some very simple tips, some exercises, some stretches, depending on what's potentially going on with pelvic floor, so that you can be on your journey. You can start to make some of these positive changes so that you don't have to cross your legs every time you sneeze, or you don't have to only wear black pants to the gym.
Busted. On both of those. I didn't even realize, like, it's such a natural habit that, like, always, no matter what, I cross my legs when I sneeze, just because life. And that's not normal, is what you're saying.
No.
Doesn't have to be like that. So there's a chance that it could be fixed.
Oh, we can definitely fix that.
That is like life changing.
It's huge.
And I love the amount of education that you do on your social media channels, Kim, of giving back. Like if you check out her social media at Thrive Pelvic Health, there you just give an abundance of education. And it literally was the first time that I was like, oh, this might be something that I should think about. Because it was never on my, it was just like, well, you're a mom now. This is what you get to deal with. Have fun. So thank you for giving back to the community in that way. And just, you spend I don't know if you spend so much time, but it looks like you spend so much time on all of your videos and all of your reels. And I just really thoroughly enjoy them.
Well, thank you.
All right. Now let's get out of our bladder pelvic floor area just for a little bit. Although it's totally fine. We could stay there all day.
Yeah.
But one question that's just been in the back of my mind that I really wanted to ask you, Mindy, is what was your original, like, how did you get into real estate and what was the passion behind that? What's the story and how you started in the wild world of real estate?
I mean, the truth of the matter is it is a good way to describe my personality type in that I like to try new things that I don't know how to do. I had 2 previous careers prior to coming into real estate and moved my way up very quickly in both of them and left both careers when things were going really wonderfully and just sort of decided that I wanted to do something different and learn how to do it. And what I think that I've loved about real estate that I didn't anticipate and about being a business owner is that I no longer have to blow up my career path and start all over again when I want to do something different. This has become truly an aligned platform for me to explore lots of different parts of me. And that feels so good. My first career was in the nonprofit sector. So I started the community volunteer program at Phoenix Children's Hospital after doing a year of service with AmeriCorps through an organization that was called Make a Difference, that's now called Hands on Greater Phoenix. My true passion in life has always been the nonprofit sector, and I really enjoyed my time there. I worked in the volunteer organization and also in the foundation doing fundraising for the Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders. And when I left there, I wanted to get my master's in public administration and thought that I worked too much at the hospital. And so I thought I would just go get some 9-to-5 job. And so I became an office manager in an IT space where I thought for sure I would find no emotional connection to what I was doing, and quickly realized it wasn't the company that made me work too much. It was me and who I was. And so when I left there, I was designing and delivering sales training globally for an IT company. Also loving what I did there. And then I think I made some comment to my stepmom and my dad, who ran a real estate team, to the effect of I didn't want to travel anymore. And I think the comment was something along the lines of, if you were a real estate agent in Arizona, you wouldn't have to travel for work. And I think about 8 weeks later, I quit my job and got my license and started doing this.
Wow.
The good of all of these decisions, which I actually reflected on recently as I was making some other life choices, is that I really have a belief, and I've always operated in a way that I will make it work just fine, and I will be just fine. And I'm so grateful that I have that view of the world, because I don't think everybody does. And I think for the people that don't, life is much harder for them. I've always looked at my world like I have it easier than other people. Sometimes I can be in what feels like the exact same circumstance. I've been divorced now for almost 2 years. I'm a single mom of a toddler. There's a lot, obviously, that goes into that, in addition to just the trauma and healing from divorce and relationships ending. And sometimes I'll be in a circumstance with someone who appears to be in very similar situation, and I just think, oh, but it's so much harder for them. And I think, but why? And it's really just, I think, the mindset that I've carried with me that I will be okay. And, you know, you mentioned before about making decisions and wanting to make the right decision and not, you know, wanting to mess things up. And I've learned so much about making decisions, and the fact that when you make a decision, there are so many steps in between the decision that you make and the actual outcome that you have no control over. And so sometimes when we make decisions, we can really put ourselves through the ringer of like, are we making the right choice? And you have the anxiety and the obsession, and that is totally me. I'm not exempt from that. But I have tried to reflect on these other decisions that I've made in life and think, if other people looked at them from the outside, they probably thought I was crazy, and they probably thought it wasn't going to work, or I'd have a problem. And the truth is, I have not ended up under the bridge from any of the decisions that I've made to date. And so I have to just trust that I won't, and that I will always make it work. And so coming into real estate, I always just say, was nothing that I ever expected I would do, but it ended up being the marriage of truly two things I'm really passionate about, and that's running businesses and helping other people run businesses, which I did in my previous career, and people and helping people. And real estate has allowed me to do that. My greatest passion is helping people through a very challenging circumstance and building a team of women and helping them feel empowered to help people in a way that not everybody can do. And then being able to explore all of this giving and choosing who I want to work with and what I want my platform to be and who I want to give a platform to. And I just had a woman today, we have a meeting next week, and she said, I have two kids. One, I'm not going to be able to, leave. I have the other one coming with me. I still want to come to this meeting, but I would have to bring my kid with me, but I really want to come to the meeting. Is that okay? And I said, I never can be a part of an organization or a space that would say no to something like that. So it's not only an emphatic yes, but like, you literally just made my day. I will do anything, no matter how hard it is to run a business, to ensure that I always get to make that choice. I will never be in a space where someone could say no to something like that. And so it's just those moments of like gratitude for what I've created and what I continue to manifest through relationships with others on a path that I honestly never expected myself to go down.
I have so many thoughts in my head. I love everything that you just said. And there's so much, I see such an overlap in both of you of like wanting to create your own path, and the vehicle with which you're doing that is your current businesses or industry. But really what I heard from both of you is that what lights you up is the flexibility, the ability to you can pivot. You pivoted earlier in your business, Kim, a little bit, to do the things that interest you, so you don't have to just quit the job and then where am I going to go, because you get to create it all. And I think that's, for me too, that's one of the things that is so magical about entrepreneurship, is you get to wake up every day and decide like, what is it that you're going to do? Of course you have clients and things, that can dictate some of that, but at the end of the day, like, you really could just decide what you want to do or don't. And I think the other piece, I love that so much about bringing your kids along, is in my office that we moved into this summer, that was a big piece for me, is we have a separate area. It's open space and then 5 offices, but one of the offices is dedicated to a kids room where there's toys and games and things for them to play, because I never want that to be an obstacle to come to a meeting or come to a session. And that is one of the reasons why I named the business that I named the way I named it, was Mother and Founder, was because I was tired of showing up in places as one thing or the other, where I had to be this leader, I had to be this professional person. And if anyone knew that I was a mother, I was something different or less than. And I just was so tired of it. And I wanted to create space and place for us to be both things and do them how we want to, which is another thing, Mindy, that you put in your guest form, was that your family is getting the best of us, not the rest of us. And that like hit home so hard because I'll be honest, lately, my family's been getting the rest of me. And that's not what I want, right? We didn't have kids to then stress and not enjoy the moments. And so that just kind of like brought me right back to center. And especially this time of year with younger kids, with all kids, but younger kiddos, when, you know, all the magic of the season, and to just miss that was like, whoa, this was my sign that I need to take a breath. And just really enjoy it and think about the intentionality between each different section. And then the last of two more questions, I think we're almost running out of, oh, we're good. Okay, we got a few more minutes, but have you ever read, either of you, the book, Everything's Figure Outable?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's a great book. It's Marie Forleo, I think, is the author. But that was like that mindset you were talking about of no matter what happens, there's going to be a solution. Everything is figure outable. And I really subscribe. And Kim, I saw you're shaking your head too, to the whole, you know, I'm going to be okay. And I think that's the mindset you have to be a successful entrepreneur, that, you know, it might not end up how we thought it was going to end up, but it'll be okay because we have this resiliency. And for me, it comes from experiencing really hard things as a young child and seeing that I was okay. And so in some ways for me, it's a trauma response. But it's been a really useful one. And I've noticed the world that have this different viewpoint when people are really unsure. And of course I'm unsure, but when they really are convinced that it's not going to be okay, it is a very different place. So I'm just curious. Some people call it tenacity. Some people call it, I don't know, grit, optimism, whatever it is. How did that manifest or show up in your guys' lives? Like, do you know where it came from?
Where did it come from?
Now we're in therapy.
Yeah. I feel a little bit comes from going through tough things and excuse me, frog in my throat. It's that time of year. That the build up, I get anxious. I get nervous when things are going to be coming, whether that's my kid's birthday party, hosting Thanksgiving. I get all the feels. But you know what? Every single time it gets done and I'm okay. And so the more times that I have faith in with the process, that builds some of that tenacity and that grit. So I think it's getting through some of those challenging times, depending and reaching out to some of my community, friends, family, other practitioners, that I get through it. So
yeah.
I
also, when I was growing up, I always was like, well, I wish I didn't have to experience these things, or it wasn't so hard, or whatever it is. And now as an adult, granted, I don't really wish that everything happened, but there's a big part of me that's grateful because it really did show me, like, you're tough. You didn't choose to be tough, but you can get through it. And like, I have not lived under a bridge based on my decisions yet either. Let's knock on wood that doesn't happen. But I just have this undying faith and commitment that I have everything and the resources that I need to figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like the scars make us, whether those are physical or emotional, they make us who we are. You know, I can't take them away. But it's that scar, that impact that made me the person I am in this moment. And I wouldn't change it.
I think for me, it comes from a belief that I have that everybody has the ability to change their circumstance. And I say that with caution because it's important to recognize that not everyone is given the same resources and not everyone in this world is afforded the same rights. And we cannot gloss over that. And we know that there are people that have to work 10 times as hard for the same outcome. Knowing that, I believe that everybody has the capacity to do that. And I think that that's always been my mindset. I have told the story before that I started a peer mediation group in second grade. And I think the reasoning behind that is that I feel like I felt awkward and uncomfortable in some school situations and environments. And I believed that if people could support other people who might be feeling that same way, that we would all be the better for it. And so I think when you truly believe that if you can give a hand to somebody, or if somebody is lucky enough to have a role model in their home that models that behavior for them, or however they get it, they find a good teacher, they find a good friend, a stranger, like whatever it is, but that if we can help people with that sort of lifeline, then I really believe that everybody has the ability to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. And so I think if you really believe that about the world, not only are you motivated to help other people get there, but you truly realize the power that you've been given to change your circumstance and other circumstance. And I think as I've gotten older, I've just been reminded that I am not in charge. And my job is just to open doors and create paths and be a good person and watch it unfold. And I feel a lot of weight in the world. And I just want to keep walking on that journey. And hopefully I can inspire my son to live the same way.
I'm sure you're inspiring him every day, even if it doesn't seem like it. It'll be interesting because my son, my oldest, is 8, and Kim, you can probably speak to this better than I could, but the things that I've said to him when he was 3, 4, 5 are starting to show up, and in like conversations with his friends when he doesn't think I'm listening, and I'm like, he did hear some things. So it's really, really fun. I'm sure you see that too.
Oh, yes. And so much more from my
I know, I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it gets in, not all of
Yes.
it. Good. So in wrapping up, I have one question, and then I'd love for you to tell the audience how they can get a hold of you, connect, follow. But if somebody was new on their either leadership or entrepreneurship journey, what's the one piece of advice that you would give them? Just one. I know it's a big question.
Just one. I would say start with your why. Figure that out, and use that for building your business, your whatever it is that you want, and that will help keep you grounded in some of those challenging decisions.
I love it. Thank you. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Look for my Instagram or TikTok, Pinterest, thrivepelvichealth.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that. The why really leads to clarity, right? And it's such a good filter then for the things that you choose to do or support or be a part of. I think for me, it's really about choosing your people. Be very wise about who you bring into your inner circle. Make sure they are encouraging and supportive. And as you make life's choices, they feel that their job is to walk alongside you, not walk in front of you and not walk behind you, but to walk alongside you in that journey. And I think it's really important that we have a permeable barrier, right? We allow what can come in and what can come out. It's not a wall. And so choosing the people who you allow in that space, I think, is really important. So how people can find me? I am not on TikTok, bless your soul. I am trying to not be 100 years old. My team tells me, they call me Grandma Mindy, but I will try to get there. Definitely Instagram, definitely Facebook. Under Amy Jones Group is where you can see all of the real estate and community stuff that we do, or just me, Mindy Jones. I'm on LinkedIn also, and we'll get to TikTok.
And Community on Purpose has a handle too, right? On Instagram?
Yeah, so they're also Community on Purpose AZ. Their website is probably a better place, though, to just get a full picture of what we do. And that's just communityonpurpose.com. You can make donations there. You can check out all the episodes of our podcast, see the different organizations we've served, all those kinds of things.
That's awesome. And Kim is TikTok famous, so maybe she can give us some tips because her social media is really good.
Well, thank you.
I have a few videos on TikTok, but I feel like a grandma too, because what are these kids doing these days? It's wild. But all right. Well, thank you both ladies for being here. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
You have been listening to the Messy Middle podcast and radio show, presented by Mother and Founder Co. We hope you have found a few pieces of wisdom to help you navigate your own messy middle. Be sure to subscribe to The Messy Middle on your favorite podcast platform and follow Jen Burwell and Mother and Founder Co. on Instagram. Remember, beginnings are usually scary and endings can sometimes be sad, but it's the middle that counts the most. Until next time, stay curious, kind, and messy.